We all change as time goes on. As humans, we are easily shaped by the world around us. We are suggestible and are always in a constant state of renewal. The same could be said about pretty much everything. Trees grow, people learn, and buildings collapse. Alive or not doesn't matter. Everything goes through some kind of evolution. Even nations and cultures, even religions, beliefs and philosophies. But that doesn't mean that the past doesn't matter. After all, every past leaves a mark for the future, a time that was once the present. But while traditions are important, just like everything else, those values will also be left in the dust. It's not that those values didn't have meaning or that they were always useless. It's just that after some time, tradition becomes more trouble than it's worth. As a culture grows and evolves, so does its ways. The old becomes a hindrance while the new becomes the ideal, and the cycle continues. So yeah, this video is about Break the Ice from Arknights. I think I'm mostly going to focus on Silverash in this video because he encapsulates what the event is about better than all the other characters. So let's just go. Let's just go over some backstory and then we can go from there. Yeah. As a gacha game, Arknights is forced into having great world building and expanding its world constantly. Every nation has its own history, forces, leaders, motivations, etc. etc. From the impossibility of Kazdal to the eldritch horrors of Iberia. This video is about a still developing nation, one that has been around for a long time but has stayed out of world politics, keeping to itself. I'm talking about Kjerag. Like any old-timey nation, it is focused greatly on its own religion, the saintess having more power than you would think. It is a cold, snowy place, but still very habitable and more hospitable than most nations of Terra. In Terra, there are catastrophes, natural disasters that spread rock cancer. Catastrophes come in many different shapes and sizes, from storms to earthquakes. The land where Kjerag resides is one of the only places immune to the dangers of catastrophes. Now that I have talked about the aura of the nation, let's talk about its politics. There are 3 great noble families that hold power in Kjerag. There's also the Vine Bear Court that glues them together, so there are quite a few players in its political landscape. Let's talk about the families. There are the Palaroshes, which are the conservatives looking to keep tradition alive no matter what. The Browntails, which are somewhere in the middle, leaning towards conservative. And the Silverashes. In that Silverash family, we have the main character of this video, Enciodes Silverash, aka Silverash. Not a creative guy by any means. He is the main heir of the Silverash family, being the oldest sibling in his family, and also the man who has the greatest hopes and ideals for Kjerag. As far as anyone knows, his parents were killed in a train accident, which left the Silverashes weak for quite a while. Some believed that it was a planned accident, while others don't think so, and others simply don't care. As much as the accident affected him and his 2 sisters, it didn't kill his motivations in any way. He stayed determined even at a young age. After his 2 sisters were old enough to take care of themselves, he left for Victoria, a foreign nation, to study. During that time frame, the Silverash family was one of the great 3 families in name only, not holding any real political power. That is until Enciodes returned. His time in Victoria had changed him, going from a third world country like Kjerag into a modern nation like Victoria had impacted him greatly. He studied there as much as he could, soaking up decades of advancements during his time in Victoria. It elevated his goals and determination. It wasn't just his spirit, his personality had changed as well. He lost his gentleness, becoming more calculated, ready to fight against whatever was thrown at him. Probably just a result of him growing up. He studied in Victoria for 4 years after all. After he got back to Kjerag, he started working on rebuilding the prestige of his family. He founded the Carlan Trade with the help of a friend he remade in Victoria, named Gnosis, a company for trade. Again, he doesn't do names. The company acted as a bridge between Kjerag and the modern world of Terra. It was the first step in opening up Kjerag to other countries to truly put the nation on the map. The company was, and still is, successful and helped him restore his family's prestige. Not everything was going well though. His two sisters suffered greatly for different reasons. Encia, the younger sister, became infected with oropathy during a freak accident while rock climbing, and his other sister, Enya, became the saintess of the Weinberg court. A job she hated, but also one she had to manage. As a saintess, she held pretty much the greatest power in all of Kjerag. Not that she liked the responsibility. Due to that, Enciodes and Enya cut all contacts with each other, to the dismay of Encia. While his business was booming, his family had fallen apart. Rhodes Island, the protagonist of Arknights, believed that the things that happened to Enciodes' two sisters were the results of political schemes, but who knows? Possibly due to the infection of Encia, among other things, Enciodes started a beneficial relationship between Carlan Trade and Rhodes Island. Neither side trusts each other that much, but they do get along decently well and work great together. Some of the Rhodes Island staff want to stop working with Carlan Trade due to the possible political schemes Enciodes is planning, but the leader of Rhodes Island thinks differently. She doesn't want Carlan Trade to be treated as enemies, because that would turn all suspicions into reality. Instead, she leaves all the possible problems that might arise from Carlan Trade to one of the most important people of Rhodes Island, the Doctor. She entrusted all matters involving Carlan Trade and Kjerag to the most trusted person she knew. As long as the Doctor and Enciodes got along, everything would be fine. Now let's move on to the prelude of the real story. Before Break the Ice, we had a little mini-story about the Silverashes in the 7th vignette of Arknights, Preluding Lights. We follow Encia here, and everything starts from Rhodes Island. Encia is the only Silverash that stays with Rhodes Island for long periods of time, and alongside her are two people that work for Enciodes. They are mostly there for Rhodes, but also take care of Encio as well. His bodyguard and chef, Matterhorn, and his mailman and spy, Weiss, also called Courier. Encia goes to their room unprompted, as you do, and sees a large amount of luggage. She goes to confront them about it and sees that they're planning to take a trip back to Kjerag. Enciodes orders, supposedly. Encia decides to shoo Matterhorn away and talk to Weiss for a minute. Matterhorn is much more honest and protective of the Silverashes, so she couldn't talk to him. You see, Encia had written a letter to Enya. She wanted to deliver the letter to her sister with the help of Weiss, as long as he didn't tell Enciodes. Enya resides at the peak of Mount Carlan as a saintess. It's pretty closed off and not anyone can get up there. The Silverashes are not in a good spot at this point, family-wise, which is why she wanted to be active in her family, but she feared that Weiss and Matterhorn would snitch and that Enciodes wouldn't let her. Either way, Weiss has no way of helping her. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he can't. Things have been getting complicated back in Kjerag, so the Weinberg court is pretty closed off for now. She's let down, but nothing can be done about it, so she gives up and the two go their separate ways. Except Encia hadn't given up yet. She commissioned some equipment predicting all of this happening. Icy mountain climbing equipment. If she can't send the letter the proper way, she will just climb all the way up to Mount Carlan and deliver it that way. After an unrelated operation, she decides to head the other way to Kjerag, claiming personal business. After she left for Kjerag though, a guard operator decided to snitch on her and told Weiss about how she just left. Weiss obviously starts panicking and leaves to find her. Unfortunately for Enciodes, Weiss is a messenger, which means that he normally travels galaxy to galaxy delivering mail. So he caught up to her as she reached Kjerag. And so they start to argue. Weiss starts telling her how stupid her whole plan of climbing Mount Carlon is, and her argument is that she is done feeling powerless. Her brother is busy with his ambitions and politics, never around. Her sister is the saintess of her home, a job she very much so hates. And because of all of that, Enciodes feels powerless. Her family is being torn apart right in front of her, and she can do nothing to stop it. Enciodes is always cold, and as time goes on, Enya starts to hate Enciodes more and more. In Kjerag, the way they choose a saintess is simple. Once one dies, they gather all the girls of appropriate age and put them in some luck-based trials. And also some, let's just say, torturous ones. Enya and Enciodes both didn't want to go, but that was how things were. Enya believed that Enciodes would help them, that he would stop them from turning her or her sister into a saintess, because he probably could do it with all the influence he had. But that didn't happen. Enya became the saintess and is now full of responsibility. The three siblings keep drifting further and further apart, and yet Enciodes can do nothing to stop all this. Or can she? She doesn't know, so all she can do is try, and nothing will stop her. Weiss decides to surrender. If she's going to do this no matter what, it's better to make sure she does it in a safe way and not beneath his nose. He will take the letter as far as he can, but he also tells her that there are no guarantees. And so, everything returns to normal. Weiss returns to Rhodes Island for the good news. Except things are more complicated than that. Enya did get the letter and she did manage to reply, but that wasn't important, because Enciodes had an errand for Encia to pass a letter to the doctor, and with that one move, the game of chess began. A bit after the letter, Encia returned to Kjerag along with the doctor and Weiss. Matterhorn had arrived earlier and met up with him as they started walking around Kjerag. Before that though, the doctor was greeted by a mysterious entity secretly and left soon after, telling him they will meet again. Matterhorn lives for his own work while Encia, the doctor, and Weiss go to the train station. Two other Rhodes Island members also joined up for this mission. Aurora, a former resident of Kjerag, and Sharp, a Rhodes Island elite. Before anything, Sharp told Aurora over his phone that she should visit her home first before anything, because Rhodes Island treats its employees well, I guess. In the meantime, the doctor will stay with Sharp, and they will ride a train to Mount Carlon. While they're on their luxurious train ride, let's go over some other key players in this event. In the Browntails family, we have Sirius Browntail, the younger sister of the matriarch of the Browntail family, Yucatan, her husband, and Ratatos Browntail, the matriarch of the Browntails. Sirius is a young, hot-headed woman that is not as smart as she's prideful, while Ratatos is a smart and capable matriarch, but in no way passionate. On the Palarosh's side, we have Arctos Palarosh, a very conservative patriarch who is in love with tradition. Then we have the Great Elder of the Weinberg Court, which means that he has the most political power out of anyone. He has to look over the Tri-Clan Parliament, which consists of the Silverash, Palarosh, and Browntail families, and assist the Saintess with her work. Them, along with Enciodes and other political members of Kjerag, started a council meeting. Thing is, no one likes the Silverashes anymore. They're a threat to the balance of Kjerag along with their Carlon trade, heavily successful with no signs of slowing down. Not just them, but their influence over Kjerag. So the Palaroshes and the Browntails want the Silverashes to give up authority over their valleys and mining regions, and also for the Silverashes to withdraw from the Parliament. In his time back, Enciodes managed to do a lot for Kjerag, from starting businesses to bringing in foreigners. Controversial stuff. Arctos doesn't like it, but he doesn't really care about whatever Enciodes does on his territory. The problem is, the Carlon trade started mining Mount Carlon as well at some point in secret, which is not good. While rich in resources, Mount Carlon is a sacred and important mountain, the same one that houses the Saintess and is the home to Kjerag, the deity of Kjerag. Enciodes had fired Gnosis, the man responsible for the operation, but Arctos tells him that he still can't trust him. Enciodes must have known about it and only stopped it after getting caught. Enciodes tells him that he's most regretful and that even he feels betrayed by everything that happened. So he turns to Ratatos to see if she has any desires of changing her position. When Enciodes first returned to Kjerag, she was the one who helped him the most. Even so, she still can't defend him. She regrets helping him out in the first place and will pay her due over time. He will pay his now. But to Enciodes, these are rather extreme terms. He already got rid of Gnosis, and things are much better now with the Carlon trade, more mild. But it's too late now. If the price was any lower, he would keep being the shady politician that he is. But the thing is, it's too late to really get rid of him as well. Getting rid of him won't stop everything he has done, all the glory that he has been bringing to Kjerag. The current greatness of Kjerag is his work. It's not arrogance, but the truth. What if he decides no? What if he just doesn't agree to the terms? Will the generals that Arctos put near his mines take over forcefully? Could he? Despite it all, he wants to be in the same page as everyone else. If it's for the sake of Kjerag and his people, he is fully able to offer his mines and valleys with both hands. But not to the Palaroshes nor the Browntails, but to Kjerag, more specifically to the Saintess and the Winebear court. This is not what anyone had expected. This was not beneficial to the parties that had put Enciodes on trial. Even so, it wasn't a deal that could in any way be rejected. Enciodes had made his next move. Outside of all the political infighting, Gnosis, Enciodes' best friend, was walking around Kjerag. People knew him and they hated him. Beside him was a girl by the name of Mor, his secretary basically. Surprisingly, he isn't too bothered about anything. He knows just how cunning Enciodes is, how he always has more going on than he lets on. For now though, Gnosis himself has no role other than to wait. Back at the council, everyone was whispering about how to approach things. The problem is, the way Enciodes went about the growth of Kjerag was too fast, so there was some backlash against everything he did and said. Some believed that he was only handing over Kjerag to other nations submissively, while others simply didn't like the changes he was bringing. But Enciodes has more ways to defend himself than just that. After all, he hasn't gone against Kjeragander's teachings either. Reciting some lines from her holy book, he tells everyone that Mount Carlon doesn't truly stand for her, but the Winebear court does, and going with what he said, he does not stand in any way against the Winebear court, even handing his property over to them. Those who toil hold power, those who idle suffer. Truly, he had done nothing wrong, even if he took the mining of Mount Carlon into question. The only one who has the final say in things is not him, nor Arctos, nor Ratatos. Only the Saintess. If someone objects, it would mean that they don't trust the Saintess, and by extension, Kjerag. While Arctos was furious, Ratatos was still calm. The Saintess was a Silverash just like Enciodes. That is, surprisingly, of no issue. However, bringing Kjerag into this now of all times when Enciodes has never done so before is simply questionable. He must have ulterior motives. Things weren't going anywhere, so Enciodes suggests bringing in the Saintess, and finally ending this discussion. And so the Great Elder leaves to go fetch the Saintess, which was in her abode along with her helper, Jar. After some talking, the Great Elder takes her into the council. Funnily enough, the Saintess was the one who had ordered the investigation on Carlon trade, and it's very clear that she does not like Enciodes one bit. Enciodes takes the time to tell her that Enya is also around, touring with Rhodes Island. After that, Enya focuses on the other two clan leaders, asking them what they think. Ratatos tells her that no matter what, he will follow her lead with no hesitation, which sealed the deal. Ratatos simply could not say no anymore, not by herself, so she agreed as well, reluctantly. And so, Enya decides to take full responsibility and guide Kjerag towards the future. This was all the first 2 chapters, by the way. Oh, buddy boy. Infuriatingly, Enciodes wasn't done yet. During an upcoming ritual, he wants the other 2 clan leaders to do what he is doing, surrender power to the Saintess, all at the same time. Thankfully, no one has any problems with that. Not only because they already swore loyalty to the Saintess, but also because they truly believe in Kjerag. Still, one question remains. Who will take care of the mines and the valleys in the meantime? Enciodes had prepared for this, as he does with everything. An expert from outside, one that is as, if not smarter, than him, with the goal of constructing a medical facility within the Silverash territory. And soon, both clan leaders would be able to meet him. Ratatos demands to have some of his people watch over this person, and Enciodes complies. And so, the council meeting ends. Finally. I think I did a good job of going over all the characters and their motivations. Actually, you know what? I did do a great job and no one can argue otherwise. Ratatos tells her sister to spy on this guest, and here we meet... I understand the Welsh now. We meet Wallace, an advisor in general to Ratatos. I just think she's pretty. He tells her to tell a man by the name of Gulo, his other general, to invite Enciodes' guest. On the other side of all this, the Doctor and his gang finally arrive to their destination, to Mount Carlon. As he is delightfully talking to his friends, they get surrounded by Gulo and his men, inviting the Doctor to the Ratatos estate. Encia argues for the Doctor, but Gulo reveals everything that happened, and how everything kind of belongs to the Winebear court now. All of which Weiss knew was going to happen, but kept a secret. I told you, he's a spy. Before the Doctor is taken away though, we meet one final important character, called Brecher, the bodyguard of Enciodes, the former champion from Kazimierz and the strongest character in this story. Her eyes meet Sharp's and both instinctively ready themselves for a fight that does not occur. She isn't here for the Doctor though, but for Encia, to escort her home by the orders of Enciodes. This is, in a way, a betrayal of trust from Carlon Trade to Rhodes Island. The Doctor was sent to Kjerag, his safety meant to be guaranteed. Yet he was sold to some random clan that Rhodes Island has no connections to. Sharp is pissed and insists on following the Doctor, but the Doctor tells him that he's fine, he will handle it. The Doctor isn't too bothered by any of this and is fine with going alone. Not a bit of surprise. A bit after that, we get a scene with Encia confronting Enciodes about all of this, but Enciodes deflects her like a true politician. At least he tells her that if the Doctor is harmed, he will do something about it. He tells her that she can watch over the Doctor while he does his work around the mines and valleys, but because he is Enciodes, he will also leave Matterhorn to monitor her. After Encia leaves with Matterhorn, Brecher warns Enciodes about the Doctor. With how he handled the situation, Dijon has him in high regards. But Enciodes assures her that him and the Doctor won't become enemies, but best friends. After that, Enciodes meets up with Gnosis and they start talking. He invited Gnosis to a party in order to humiliate him to appease his stakeholders. Another person that Enciodes, quote-unquote, betrayed. He was in charge of everything, and in the first sign of danger, threw Gnosis under the snow. Gnosis is rightfully annoyed by all this. In the Arctos estate, the Doctor finally meets up with Arctos. Valais explains everything to the Doctor and how he is going to be supervised by Palarocious. The Doctor stays polite and the meeting ends quickly because of that, with him getting escorted to his room. While he is laying in his room, he gets visited by the same ghost that approached him when he first arrived. A ghost by the name of Kjerag. A ghost that wants to be friends with him. A ghost that watches over Kjerag as its guardian spirit, as its god. Just as one would expect, it's mostly the older folks of Kjerag that don't approve of Enciodes' work. Schemes. The younger lads are mostly fine with progression, reveling in the money it brings. None of that matters though, because the Doctor decided to tell Kjerag his life story out of boredom. The two are talking like gentleman and woman, learning all about each other like he do. As much as Kjerag respects the life that her people have right now, she knows that it can't continue and that her people need some kind of reformation. Kjerag also tells the Doctor about a friend she has. One who wants the best for Kjerag but doesn't know what to do. Everyone is different. Everyone has different values and political views. You can't generalize people's ideals, put them in fences that fit them best. No one is right or wrong. Politics and ideals don't work that way. They are simply shaped by the teachings of the world around us, which is why this friend is confused about her own right solution. And now that the Doctor is here, this friend can't stop the changes that are going to happen, and this friend doesn't know how to handle it. So Kjerag asks him, "What does your arrival portend?" So the Doctor lets her in on his thinking and asks her for a favor. In the meantime, Sharp and Aurora went to check on the Doctor, and on the way, they get to talking about the clans, their logistics, and also why Rhodes Island was sent here. They only came to Kjerag to build disease-related facilities for Karlan trade, nothing about the Doctor being in charge of the mines. Even so, the Doctor willingly threw himself into this conspiracy and is seemingly intent on seeing it through. Those are all the facts they are aware of. Why the Doctor went along with things, what Enciodes wants, they don't know. Sharp plans on just busting in and breaking the Doctor out, which Aurora rejects immediately. As a Kjerag operator, she doesn't want to have bad relations with her country. But Sharp doesn't really care, he only cares about the safety of the Doctor and nothing more. He assures her that his plan is only for the worst possible case, but he won't hesitate if it comes to it. She tells him that there must be some clue to Enciodes' plan that the Doctor picked up on, which is why he's so nonchalantly going along with things. Aurora is indebted to Enciodes because he was the one who helped her leave Kjerag. Even so, at this point, anything is possible. So Sharp tells her to treat him as a potential enemy. Out of nowhere, they get approached by Jar, Enya's assistant. Before Sharp slits her throat, she tells them that the Doctor sent her to bring them a secret message. So secret, in fact, that I cannot tell you. A while back, Gnosis was approached by Sirius Browntail and she recruited him under the advice of Ratatos. As the one who was closest to Enciodes, he would know all about his plans best. They start conversing, laying it all out. Why would Enciodes suggest the transfer of his power to the Weinberg court? Must be a compromise, right? To which Gnosis laughs. Most likely, even Ratatos knows that's not the case. Enciodes is determined. He wouldn't settle for a compromise. So he gives her the hint. The upcoming ceremony. During it, there will be a lot of trains coming in and out of the Silverash territory, transporting both resources and people. Arctos is not smart. He believes that Enciodes will do something after the ceremony, which is why he's supervising the Doctor. But it's all pointless. Gnosis looks at a wall at something Sirius doesn't notice. He calls her dumb and tells her that he will tell her about Enciodes, only if she seeks him out herself. Only that he isn't talking to Sirius. He leaves, leaving the two sisters alone. As this smart and capable sister, Ratatos tries to read into all this. She hypothesizes that Enciodes could be bluffing to make them move first, but there is no way to truly know. Once upon a time, she thought that taking Enya hostage in the Weinberg court was a brilliant move, but she isn't so sure anymore. She also tells her sister to not trust the people around her too much, especially not her servant, the one called Molch. On another note, Valais finally took the doctor into the mines and is now letting him do his job under her supervision. Things aren't looking great in the Silverash estate. People are skeptical, not knowing what's going to happen to their newly acquired jobs. Weiss is reassuring people until he sees the doctor and apologizes to him, telling him that everything will become clear after the ceremony. With the help of the doctor, he helps the citizens calm down. Back in the Browntail estate, Molch is doing her spying, working under Sirius, or at least acting like it, giving out orders. Gnosis calls her and tells her to do a better job because they are onto her. Still, he doesn't blame her and tells her to continue her work. This story is much more in-depth than I remember. On their way through the Silverash estate, the doctor and Valais, along with a butler, suddenly get ambushed by some armed subjects, accusing the doctor of tricking Enciodes into everything that happened. They only figured everything out recently from a mysterious informant, a reliable one at that. According to them, the doctor must be in cahoots with the Palaroshes. They accused Rhodes Island, Weinberg Court, and the Palaroshes of planning to spread oripathy around to shut down the Carlon trade. Valais calls it slander, but they managed to put doubt in her mind. Not about the possibility of this plan, but doubt towards the Palaroshes and the Weinberg Court. Years ago, her father suddenly caught an untimely illness, and the Weinberg Court tried to help him with medicine, but failed. Weirdly enough, her father was against the Weinberg Court and was politically opposed to them, so there is a real possibility that her father was assassinated by the Great Elder. While she doesn't entertain the idea for long, the seed was planted. She orders her people to protect the doctor. Like an RKO, Sharp teleports in to help along with Aurora. They run with the doctor and Sharp starts to scold him for being reckless, but the doctor tells them that they wouldn't kill him. That's not their end goal. Most likely, these attackers were incited by the Browntails. The doctor believes that it's to spread doubt between Rhodes Island, the Palaroshes, and the Silverashes, and that it's also a trap. The ambushers were weak. Let's say that they were apprehended and questioned. That would put the Browntails in trouble instead. Still, they need more intel. They decide to keep this from Weiss, Matterhorn, and Clifford. As Valais starts panicking because of the lack of doctors around, he shows up and tells her that he is fine. She apologizes for not protecting him well enough, as the ambushers are still talking mad crap. Turns out, one of them is Aurora's brother. As everyone keeps arguing, the doctor comes up with an idea. He tells Valais to let them all go, for a number of reasons, and she complies, letting them all go. Now things won't go as the perpetrator had planned. After everything, the doctor and Valais return to the Octo's estate, and she starts to ask a few questions. She thinks that they were probably there on the orders of Enciodes so that he can accuse the Palaroshes of not being able to protect the doctor. But the doctor dismisses that idea. A crime is much worse than failing duty. It would simply be a stupid move. Arctos joins them, praising the doctor. He tells Valais to tell his troops that guarding the doctor will no longer be necessary. Sharp and Aurora will also be able to travel freely from now on. Valais leaves and Arctos decides to offer the doctor some clues. He was not the one to instigate the attack. That leaves one party out of the picture. Now there is some trust between the two factions, but the doctor knows more than that. If the Palaroshes and the Rhodes Islands are on good terms, that means that there is no reason why the doctor needs to be used as a smokescreen. Things were shaping up. After that, an explosion was set off in the distance. A few minutes ago, or maybe a few hours ago, I don't know, Gnosis and Ratatos got talking, face to face. It is Weird how chill Gnosis is with everything. Enciodes keeps debasing him, putting him under the tracks, yet Gnosis doesn't seem to care. What is the reason? Gnosis tells her that Enciodes promised him a future, Kjerag's future. Gnosis is a researcher and he loves to invent. If things go well, he can do so in a free nation. You see, Kharlan trade will never be as big as Kjerag, normally. But the thing is, Kjerag is old news. Now that its borders are open, Kjerag won't be closing again. And from there, the infected will come pouring in, to a nation with no way to treat the infected. The disease will spread, along with technology and comfort, tech that only Kharlan trade can provide. So the people will have to choose between Kjerag and the Kharlan trade. And in these times, only one can keep them safe. After their talk, Gnosis leads Ratatos outside, making her follow him, taking her to death and destruction. They reach a railroad, one that leads to the outside world, abandoned a long time ago. Or so it should have been. Enciodes secretly rebuilt it and a train was coming. Suddenly, Gnosis snaps his fingers and the train explodes, roaring out and spreading its flames. Gnosis pulls out a saber, looking at Ratatos. Things were simple. She wanted info, he wanted the Browntail's power against Enciodes. Let's put it like this. If the Browntails were ever at a huge disadvantage, they would give up and sell out to Gnosis. And Gnosis knew this. What he doesn't know though is the full extent of Enciodes' plans. He cannot estimate the amount of people and weapons Enciodes is bringing. He needs all the power he can gather to stop him before it's too late, and he also needed to cut off the Browntail's retreat. Now, they were accomplices and Ratatos had no way of backstabbing him. But Ratatos orders his arrest anyway. This is all still very suspect. Why did Enciodes let Gnosis go so easily? Why were there no guards to protect this train? Enciodes is always meticulous. He would not let Gnosis do this. Soon, a secret squad by name of, I'm guessing, Chagatta, appeared, trained by Enciodes himself. Chagatta were fables of Kjerag, basically villains of Kjerag, kept away with Kjeragander's power. The name wasn't a coincidence. Enciodes was planning on killing God. Not in a literal sense, but a philosophical one. Right now though, they were after Gnosis, because, you know, he blew up a train. A while later, Sharp explains to the doctor about what went down. Ratatos managed to take all the Chagattas alive and Gnosis got away. All of which were also reported to Enciodes. He was impressed with Gnosis. After all, a Silverash associate should at least be that capable. Let's talk more about Enya and Enciodes. Why does Enya hate him so much? For not helping her? For sitting back and watching as she is turned into a saintess? If so, that would be kind of unreasonable. Could he even have done anything? Maybe she hates him because it was his ambitions that made her a target. But that too would be unreasonable. So why? Why hold such disdain for a brother you used to like? One you used to be friends with? Well, Enciodes didn't just sit back and watch as she was made into a saintess. He actively encouraged it. For the sake of the Kharlan trade, it had to happen. A perfect opportunity handed to him by his enemies. He changed Enya's life forever and ruined all the connections that remained between his family after his parents' death. She wanted to voice her concerns, tell him that she doesn't want to do it, but she never managed to build the courage to do so. As far as she knew, in the eyes of Enciodes, it was her duty as a Silverash. So she went along with everything and became the saintess. Still, her life isn't fully miserable. She has her loving sister that sends her letters, as much as she can anyway, and Jar, her helpful and kind attendant. Soon the holy hunt would begin, an important Kjerag ceremony in which people hunt. The saintess also has to participate and can hunt if she wishes. It doesn't normally happen, and by normally I mean never, but Enya wants to hunt anyway. Enciodes was also preparing for the hunt, buying a bunch of idols, putting them where there aren't any, and visiting the Weinberg court on foot without resting or water. In short, walking through towns and climbing a mountain on his 2 feet. His people were touched by just how noble he was. While more complicated than this is one of the steps required to be a saintess, which is why Enciodes doing it holds so much meaning for all the citizens. It makes them relatable, more like them, like he's just another soul that can work hard and sweat, another believer just like them. And so, people started following in his footsteps as he passed by them, his charisma oozing out like a true leader. The other 2 clan leaders, on the other hand, were already at the Weinberg court, waiting for Enciodes. Ratatos is suspicious of him as always, but Arctos doesn't bother complaining about him because, to him, Enciodes is doing a noble thing. For once, he had to commend the pale-haired politician. There were others around as well, like Sirius and her servant, wink, Month. Sirius wanted to impress her sister no matter what, so that she can become the matriarch. Month sees the opportunity and takes it instantly. She makes sure that Sirius won't tell anyone about her secret plan and starts manipulating her, giving her a suggestion on how she can bring glory to the Browntails. Eventually, Enciodes reaches the place of the hunt, talking with Enya, and they talk in the most political way possible. They aren't family, not anymore. As they leave to join the hunt, Enya tells him that Kjerag has its own path to follow and that no one can decide the fate of all of Kjeragonder's children. To which he tells her, "I feel the same way. Our merits are not for others to judge. Now that things have come this far, there is no reason to back away. With my actions, I did all I could, nothing more." And so, the hunt begins. The doctor also joined the festivities, by himself this time. He gets jump scared by Jar and they start walking around and talking. The Saintess, the title not the person, isn't without its controversies. At first, every year, a girl would be picked to go to the top of Mount Carlon and pray until she died. Because Kjeragonder first appeared as a pure girl, people thought that this would help bring her back. This continued for around 100 years, until there was a rebellion because the wrong girl was chosen. The daughter of a small clan leader was picked, and that clan leader started a riot, and much of the Weinberg court's buildings and sacred texts were destroyed, which skewed their understandings of the religion. The wildest thing is that the girl that was chosen did actually go to Mount Carlon anyway, and Kjeragonder regained her strength after century-long slumber, which is why the Weinberg court is still around, because that saved their reputation. After that, everything went back to normal and saintesses weren't the same as before. None of this is taught by the Weinberg court, yet Jar knows about it. The doc finds it sus, but moves on anyway. On another note, the hunt hadn't been going as planned. There were too many beasts, and they were too strong. The Browntails and the Silverashes were in one place, while the Palaroshes and the Saintess were on another. Ratatos joined up with the Palaroshes and Enya, expressing her concern. Little did she know, this was the work of her sister, to gain the favor of Ratatos and the Saintess. She planted more beasts in the competition than there would be otherwise, made them stronger, all to kill a bunch of them in front of all the important people. But Month was nowhere to be found and Sirius was beginning to panic. Where was Month? With Gnosis, of course. She's nervous about putting the Browntails in such a bad situation, but keeps following Gnosis' orders anyway. He tells her that as long as she gives Enciodes info, Enciodes will let her go, no matter the conspiracy. As all of this is happening, a Silverash troop approached the Saintess and the gang, telling him that Enciodes was ambushed by an assassin. Ratatos has no plans of tolerating this disrespect for the hunt and takes a few of his men to go help Enciodes, even with Ratatos' displeasure. It wasn't a lie, he really was ambushed by Monk. As they're fighting, Enciodes isn't threatened in any way, because with him there was a guard, not his, but the doctor's. Sharp was doing his spying, as is common, as a Silverash troop per doctor's orders, but Enciodes somehow figured it out. After unmasking himself, the fight had to be over, because no one there was as powerful as Sharp. Enciodes told her to give up and she was about to. The plan was for Monk to reveal to everyone that the Browntails sent her to assassinate Enciodes. But she just couldn't do that to the Browntails. Not so dirty. Sirius, while dumb, had charisma and could be considered charming. Gnosis was not. Monk had too much loyalty to the Browntails now, so instead of giving up and confessing about who controls her, she decided to run away. Sharp lets her go and Enciodes isn't too bothered by it. There are breadcrumbs, he can lead it to the Browntails in some way. Ratatos finally reached them, but it was too late. Everything had already happened. Even injured, Enciodes had no desire of stopping. His determination is frightening. Like a machine. No matter what, he wouldn't stop. Onwards. He walked on and on and on. A day had passed and rumors were spreading. Kjerag is almost at a breaking point. People were hungry to find out who had attacked Enciodes. The doctor had expected all of this happening. Even so, he still was semi-stressed about it. Jar thinks that maybe Enciodes planned his own attack in order to gain sympathy from the people, but the doctor rebukes that, telling her that there was another possibility. The main ceremony was about to begin, along with the transfer of power to the Saintess. This would be the last year that the Great Elder would remain on top of things, so it was truly the beginning of a new era. And for that, he had to accept gifts. Ratatos ordered the valets to give him some wine, and she did. The wine represented bountiful harvest. He drank it. Ratatos told Yucatan to give him a scarf. He did. It signified comfort and good health. The Great Elder draped it across the Saintess. Enciodes told Matterhorn to give him a knife. The knife that represents peace. The Great Elder takes it and gives it to the Saintess. Suddenly, Vice showed up, announcing that the perpetrator was found. Everyone decided to pause the ceremony in order to bring down the perpetrator. And the escorted perpetrator was, of course, Monk. As she was about to be executed, Sirius spoke out, not wanting any harm to be done to Monk. And so, under the Great Elder's orders, Sirius also got put under detention. The Browntails were in a bad situation now. But something else was happening as well. The Great Elder was coughing constantly. Suddenly, he fell over. Poison. It was clearly the wine. After the Saintess inspected the cup, it was clear. The Palaroches were in a bad situation now. Enciodes began his slanders. The people were furious. Out of nowhere, the guard holding Sirius got shot by none other than Gnosis. Gnosis started slandering Enciodes and telling Ratatos that drastic measures have to be taken. The Gembrecher puts him down, but it was too late. Ratatos ordered the man to take back Sirius and put down Enciodes. Ratatos did the same, putting his own man in formation. Enciodes told the Gembrecher to not do anything and let him handle it. He left Matterhorn to take care of the Great Elder and Enya, and ordered Weiss to take down Ratatos and Arctos. And so, this was the other possibility that the doctor had predicted. Everything was Enciodes' plan, including the appearance of Gnosis. The doctor orders Sharp to help Ratatos and Arctos. Enciodes won. Even if the two clan leaders remain safe, Kjerag will undergo a great transformation. Sharp tells him that he won't help because this doesn't have anything to do with Rhodes Island, and also nothing to do with the doctor's safety. But the doctor tells him that what he's trying to do is save lives. He tells Sharp to trust him, and Sharp decides to do so. And so, with the help of Sharp and Aurora, the clan leaders manage to escape. The Great Elder got sent to the Weinberg court along with Enya so that the ceremony could continue at a later date. All the mental preparations that Enya had up to this point didn't matter. All of this was planned and not in the way she was prepared for. She too was a pawn, to her own brother no less. Even if she got all the power, she would hold no control. If she got the power. People believed in Enciodes now, not Kjerag. Sorrow, reluctance, fury, ever fleeting. The doctor surprised Enciodes, but he still had a backup plan. As another Grandmaster, he took the doctor seriously. After that, he walked towards the people, telling them how he just doesn't want to do this, but has to. There needs to be a trial for the traitors. The enemies of Kjerag were the Browntails and the Palaroshes. Enciodes, Enciodes, Enciodes. Trial, trial, trial. Silverash, Silverash, Silverash. Ding, ding, ding. Still, not all hope was lost. The Browntails were flexible and the Palaroshes were strong. The doctor could still manage something. Yes, the two clans were filled with traitors and spies, ones that are constantly trying to sell out their leaders now that things are basically over. But with the mind of the doctor, the wit of Ratatos and the strength of Arctos, something could happen! The power of friendship! Yay! Let's go! Sirius and Ratatos argue, with Ratatos scolding her for being stupid. Sirius, while stupid and dumb, has a heart of gold, so she tells her sister that she will go and claim that it was all a personal dispute between her and Enciodes. That would clear the Browntail's name to some extent. The thing with the two sisters is that they both truly love each other and care about one another. Ratatos, while harsh, never scolds Sirius too hard, and Sirius wants to be the matriarch because she knows that Ratatos doesn't want to be. While capable, Ratatos doesn't like the responsibility and is only the clan leader because she has to be. Sirius knows this, which is why she wants to become the clan leader. After laughing a bit, Ratatos convinces Sirius to not bother with such a dumb plan. She tells her to go back to their estate while she herself stays for some business. Arctos is walking around getting his army ready for war with his general Gulo before they are confronted by the Chagata, led by Valais. Remember how I said her dad caught an untimely illness? That illness was poison, fed to him by the Great Elder because he was powerful and sort of against the Weinberg court. And Arctos was the one that convinced Valais that the treatment of his father was necessary to dispel the evil out of him. The Great Elder told everyone that her dad was most likely attacked by the Chagata, the fabled ones, not the real ones, during the holy hunt of that time period. So he was fed medicine in order to heal him. The assassination was pretty successful. Even when Valais was starting to get skeptical, even after her dad died, he assured her that her dad was most likely being possessed by an evil Chagata and that if the elixirs he gave him weren't working, most likely he was too far gone, too possessed. He told her that it was her will, Kjeragander's will, for him to die. Even so, Valais still wasn't sure if the Great Elder truly killed her father. Not until she saw how he reacted after drinking the poison she gave him. That poison was the same elixir that was given to her dad. She somehow found the elixir and tested it on the Elder, and now he was dying in his court. Arctos is completely distraught by this revelation. He is feeling immense guilt now that he knows the truth. Still, she doesn't completely blame him. He too was just a believer who got taken advantage of. Even so, Valais truly believes that it's time for Kjerag to change. She only hopes that Ratatos doesn't stand in the way of that. In another place, Knossos is taken prisoner. Once upon a time, him and Enciodes were childhood friends. They had dreams of turning Kjerag into the most powerful nation of all time. They truly cared for each other even after they got separated. Due to an incident, Knossos and his parents had to leave Kjerag. They had committed a crime, one worthy of exile. Still, young Enciodes believed that Knossos wasn't guilty. They were best friends, and that would never change. They managed to reunite years later as students in Victoria. Knossos became more arrogant and Enciodes more cold-hearted. Knossos was drowning himself in knowledge and research, while Enciodes was learning more and more about the wider world. It was fascinating. This was when Enciodes realized that isolation won't keep Kjerag safe. In the past 100 years, there had been countless conflicts. Colombia became a powerhouse of a nation, while the once ever-present Gaul was wiped out. Nations were growing at a steady pace, becoming larger and stronger over time. Kjerag would simply stand no chance and would get devoured at some point. He needed Knossos' help, so he asked for it. And that is how Enciodes managed to convince Knossos to work with him. And now they were both talking in Knossos' cell, the one Enciodes put him in. This was all planned in the party Enciodes humiliated Knossos in, not just by Enciodes, but also Knossos. Enciodes could have taken out the other two clans by force, but he wouldn't be acknowledged that way. So Knossos came up with an idea. He would become a sinner, the traitor of Carlon trade. He didn't care if Enciodes was fine with it, he would go through with it anyway. They are partners in crime, not boss and underling. In the cell, Knossos tells him that he hasn't really changed as much as he thought. He was always a conceited perfectionist and always will remain so. Now, Enciodes had a choice. Let Knossos go or perfect his plan by executing him like a real traitor. And so, he reached out his hand. Knossos was still his dearest friend. They shook hands, the bonds between them sacred. Enciodes is a perfectionist. He will always work for what he wants. And right now, what he wants is the company of his best friend. Ratatos was amassing an army while Ratatos had sent a letter pledging allegiance to the Silverashes. She wanted to meet and talk about everything, including the truth behind Enciodes' parents' death. A possible trap, but one worth nonetheless. Enciodes knows about how smart Ratatos is. If she had studied in Victoria like he did, she would understand him. A bet, one worth taking. Ratatos won't be a problem. Actually, the biggest problem right now is the Doctor. Not an enemy, but an unknown variable. Knossos will take charge of everything for now, while Enciodes will go to Ratatos. Weiss and Matterhorn will listen to Knossos, so things should be fine. And so, Enciodes left with Degenbrecher. Knossos asked Matterhorn and Weiss about Monch, and they took him to her. Her flee from battle was expected. Weiss took care of her as she was fleeing. Knossos decided to apologize to her for not telling her about everything in advance. But it had to be done. For the plans to work, it was better for most people to not know about them. Monch tells them that, no matter what, she will always support him. But also that she is hurt. Why didn't he trust her? Why didn't he believe in her? He tells her that he did, which is why he gave her such hard tasks. She stops talking and he leaves. At this point, Monch isn't sure if she's planning on supporting him anymore. Sirius is jealous of everything her sister has. her authority, wealth, and standing. Ratatos is jealous of everything her sister has: romantic life, freedom, and future. But handing the Brown Hills to Sirius would spell its destruction. Likewise, Ratatos most likely could not live such a mundane life without failing. As she was deep in thought, Enciodes approached her, along with Degen. Degen waits outside while Ratatos and Enciodes enter a room to talk. 7 years ago, Enciodes had returned to Kjerag, and Ratatos was the one who helped him settle back down. She helped him with his plans. Yet, this was not a similar situation to Gnosis. Their falling out wasn't planned, it happened naturally. They start talking about the death of Enciodes' parents. The investigation concluded that the train accident happened because of Gnosis' parents. He never believed it and suspected the other two clans of being responsible. And so, Ratatos tells him the truth. It was an accident, one caused by her grandfather. He was planning on killing Enciodes' parents, but in a different way. The house they are in now was prepared just for that, to kill the Silverashes by burning them alive during a visit. They died on the train to this location. And now this house that was spared of that conspiracy will be used to kill both Enciodes and herself. She pulled a lever and the fire started. There's no way out of the room. Once she activated the lever, no exits were spared. Ratatos decides to take the time and talk about her ideals. Kjerag is not what it once was. Kjerag used to be the land watched over by Kjeragander, a place where her people stood together, talked together, ate together. Yet the people are growing further and further apart because of all this political nonsense. An invisible, worthless barrier separating people into embarrassing clans. At first, she was happy when Enciodes promised change. She thought that he was going to unite the three clans, and indeed, he had thought about it. But that certainly wasn't happening right now. Ratatos was not after profits or glory. She was only scared. She didn't see union in Enciodes' actions, but something else entirely. Enciodes decided to share his side as well. While rich, safe, and full of history, Kjerag lacks the one thing that nations need to survive nowadays: technology. Some tech can simply be bought, but others can't. By colluding with other nations, Enciodes managed to gain access to technology. And now, Kjerag is a far more efficient country than before. Kjerag is out of time. Be it Victoria, Minos, Colombia, or whatever other nation, doesn't matter. The only reason why Kjerag hasn't been taken over yet is because the other nations haven't felt the need to. For a long time, most nations kept to themselves, but now that is simply not possible. They are all too large, too powerful to not engage with one another. And yet, Kjerag remains oblivious. All it takes is for one nation to take notice of Kjerag. Just one. The current peace would be history. As everything was coming to a close, the walls started breaking down, and Degenbrecher, along with Sirius, rescued the two clan leaders. It was all over. People witnessed everything, and now the Browntails hold no prestige. As the people start to insult Ratatos and Sirius, Sharp showed up and told her that the doctor wants to talk to her. But after assessing the situation, she simply declines. After all, what more could be done? Things aren't looking good in the Weinberg court either. Enya is mostly handling all the devotees, making sure they don't panic, but no real progress is being made. The Great Elder just woke up, still sick. After people explain the situation to him, he's a little panicked but no less determined. The land of Kjerag hasn't changed for over a millennium. Why should it change now? He knows that he has little time left, so he wants to speak with Enya as quickly as possible. But that's not important right now. The doctor managed to gather both Arctos, he stopped them from war, and Ratatos in the same place, and now was going to come up with a plan. First, he tells them that the battle is already lost, nothing can be done about that. But still, they had options. First, they have to rescue the Saintess. Gnosis can easily predict that. If the doctor stopped Arctos from attacking, most likely he was after the Saintess. But how exactly, Gnosis didn't know. The doctor was planning on using the main force of Arctos to attack from the front, near Mount Carlon. The Chgatas will be easy to deal with, but the Jembrecher is the real problem. Sharp should be able to handle her. He can't beat her, but he can stall her for 10 minutes. Still, Ratatos isn't convinced. She is tired of everything and just wants to sleep and never leave her bed again. Sirius takes notice of that and tells her to make her the matriarch, and Ratatos just agrees. She just doesn't care at this point. So the rest of the plan involves Sirius instead. In the Silverash estate, Encia is grounded and can't leave. Thankfully, the doctor sent Aurora to tell her something. Her job was simple: climb up Mount Carlon and sneak into the Weinberg court to find her sister. Their only hope of combating Enciodes is Kjeragander. In other words, the people's faith. All Enya has to do is somehow motivate Enya. And so the plans were put into motion. Gnosis had ordered Monk to scout around, and she found the Arctos army approaching. But Arctos wasn't leading it, the doctor was. Arctos was nowhere to be found. The army was slow. Slow enough that the Silverash scouts would be able to notice them easily. Soon, a scout of their own approached the doctor, telling him that Yucatan, the husband of Sirius, was found. Gulo had to handle this problem, so he left the doctor. In the Weinberg court, the Great Elder finally starts talking with Enya. From the very beginning, the concept of the Saintess was a total fabrication in order for the Weinberg court to facilitate the spread of faith. But he isn't here to tell her that their faith is false. Quite the opposite. Once someone becomes the Great Elder, they lose their name. Even he doesn't remember his name anymore. Just as Enya will soon forget hers and become just the Saintess. And that's when she will finally realize what the Great Elder has realized. People don't believe in Kjeragander. People can believe in anything as long as there's a story. They can believe in the Great Elder, the Saintess, Enciodes, Round Terra, whatever. So that begs the question, if people can believe in anything, then what is faith? It's simple. What people believe in is faith. What people like, they attribute to their faith. What they don't like, they shun in the name of their faith. People will always trust their faith blindly. Faith is laziness, escapism, decadence, stability, and stagnation. The Great Elder was coughing and dying, but he didn't care. He had to talk. Faith is ugly, but indestructible. Over the years, the clans have been drifting further and further apart, yet faith still stands strong. It unites people, it gives strength. People crave stability, stagnation. Enciodes thinks that he has won, but he can't win. How could he defeat the god known as faith? He himself is going to die soon, but Enya is still young. The Saintess is still young. She can become the Great Elder. She can use the power of faith against Enciodes. Enya simply stares at him, not with awe, but pity. Still, it helps her determination. She disagrees with him. Yes, faith is addictive. It can make people lazy. But it's not stagnation. it's just faith. People can believe in anything, even reality, even hope, even progress. The reason why Jaragander's faith has been stagnant is because the Weinberg court has been stagnant. Things aren't meant to be, they only seem that way because they haven't changed. And it is time for change. She will face Enciodes on her own terms. As for the Great Elder, it's time for him to rest. He has done enough. Gnosis is struggling. Gulo's forces are heading towards Yucatan and another towards the kill. But this whole plan is too inefficient to just be a rescue mission. The way the Doctor himself is going, he can either reach Mount Carlon or the pass to the Silverash estate. Likely, he's going to the latter. He decides to send Valais to Gulo and Weiss to the other forces. Gulo managed to sneak Encia to the foot of Mount Carlon, and now she was on her own, having to climb the mountain by herself during a terrible storm. Yes, there's a terrible blizzard. Remember that. Gulo himself only has to cause destruction and be a source of distress. Valais showed up and they start to fight. Sirius is leading her own men to the kill, actually being charismatic for once. Another secret unit, led by Ratatos, was going to rush to the top of the mountain to rescue the Saintess. Meanwhile, Encia was still climbing during the terrible storm. Gnosis was getting outplayed. Still, Enciodes was around to help. He sent Degenbrecher out, and not to Ratatos. His forces are a ruse like all the others. The problem is the Doctor. If he regroups with Ratatos, there would be real trouble. And still, Encia was climbing during the terrible storm. Degenbrecher shows up, ready to intercept the Doctor. Except, the Doctor isn't who she finds. She finds Sharp disguised as a Doctor, ready to take her on and install her. The whole plan was designed around Degen specifically, to have her out of the picture for as long as possible. Encia finally reached the top of the mountain. Enya stands alone with Jar, talking to her about the Doctor, and soon the Doctor's emissary was behind her. Finally, the two sisters could talk to each other. Both are incredibly happy and start conversing right away. Like two sisters, like family. Enya asks her why the Doctor sent her, and Encia told her that it's for Enya's protection, just in case anything goes wrong. But Enya could figure out the real reason. That was just what the Doctor had told Encia, not the real plan. The Doctor's goal was the exact opposite of that. Encia wasn't the one keeping Enya safe, it was the other way around. Encia wasn't meant to protect her, but to motivate her to fight better. And so, Enya asks her sister for a favor. As cool as all that is, Sirius managed to rescue Yucatan! Yay! For the finish of a plot line. Matterhorn is the last line of defense left for Ratatos. The two start to fight. In the middle of their fight, Aurora shows up, escorting a wild Doctor, along with reinforcements. Finally, the two managed to regroup. Still, things weren't over yet. Enciodes showed up as well, ready to end things once and for all. Enya was also on her way out of the Weinberg court, leaving Jar to look over the place. As you can probably guess, Jar is Kjerag, and also Jaragander. She had seen many saintesses come and go, acting as their maid. But Enya was the only one that didn't become a puppet to the Weinberg court. What made her different is that she wasn't noble. She didn't show up to become a saintess, but came with anger and disappointment. She never tried to be the envoy of Jaragander, but someone that can simply serve her people. She hated Enciodes, was disgusted by the clans, and loathed being the saintess. And yet, she loved Kjerag. With a few claps, she cleared the weather, the storm, gone. Blaze and Gulo noticed it while fighting. Yucatan and Weiss noticed it while clashing swords. Sharp and Degen noticed it after the end of their fight. As Enciodes and Ratatos are ready to clash armies, Enya shows up, Encia behind her, her bell ringing. After witnessing Jeragonder's miracle, no one had the will to fight anymore. After Enya finally showed up with sun shining down on her, no one had the thoughts to fight. Encia told her that she was scared, but Enya promised her that she would protect her, that she would protect Kjerag. Ratatos bows gracefully towards her, and his people follow his example. Gnosis asked Enciodes if he had any regrets of bringing the doctor to Kjerag now that he lost. But Enciodes told him that this is not a loss. In the past it might have been, but today this was anything but. He walked forwards and kneeled to Enya, and his people soon followed. And thus, the snowcap incident came to a sudden conclusion. After everything, Enya gave a large speech about unity and faith and belief, becoming the illuminated one, whatever that means, likely a future altar. That day became a national religious holiday. In the Silverash estate, the doctor and Enciodes finally got to talking over a game of chess. All Enciodes really needed was someone to distract the Palroshes while he brought in his troops and supplies. He chose the doctor for that. He was planning on apologizing after everything, for putting him through stress. But now he had to apologize for underestimating him. While Gnosis and Enciodes think differently, they both understand each other. Enciodes never had to worry about anything involving Gnosis, because he knew Gnosis would take care of it all. The explosion of the railroad wasn't just to gain the trust of Ratatos, but also to block off contact with the outside world for a bit, until everything came to fruition. Just like their chess game, he didn't manage to win. But he didn't lose either. He drawed. A draw can be good or bad. In the case of Enciodes, anything other than a great victory is a crushing defeat. But this time, a draw was indeed a great victory. He had already won, yet the doctor perfected his win. Without the doctor, Enciodes would have united Kjerag for sure, but there would have been cracks. He would have to wipe out the other two clans and puppet over the Winebear courts. But the doctor managed to unite all the enemies into one group, not as clans, as a faith, or as progress, but just as Kjerag. Kjerag had to be united for one thing: external concerns. He doesn't hate the Weinberg courts and isn't trying to eradicate religion, despite how his actions seem. He isn't dissatisfied with Ratatos or Ratatos either. They simply don't have the same view as him. If he had more time, he wouldn't mind spending even decades explaining to everyone why Kjerag had to change in a gentler way. But Kjerag doesn't have time. Kjerag is still small and not rich in terms of money, but a land immune to catastrophes is bound to be in the radar of any nation. Soon, Ratatos will announce his responsibility of poisoning the Great Elder and resign as the head of the Palroshes. Instead, Enya will handle his land. The Browntails signed an agreement of subordination to the Silverash clan, but that doesn't really matter. Enciodes has no plans of controlling them. Their talk was coming to an end and it was time to leave. The bonds of Rhodes Island and Kjerag are much stronger now, and will soon be fully official. And so the two part ways, for now. Enya figures out that Jar is Jaragonder but isn't too bothered by it, asking her to continue being her maid and friend. Gnosis got turned into a representative to Rhodes Island, becoming the link between the two factions. Before leaving, he goes to check on Monk, but doesn't find her. Weiss and Matterhorn apologize to the Doctor and are quickly forgiven, and along with Encia, Aurora and Sharp, all are ready to return to Rhodes Island. Encia still hadn't given up, and one day, her, Enya and Enciodes will be family again. Okay, I'm gonna go a bit schizo here and just go on a long villainous monologue rant thing. So let's just do that. Ideals are strange. They can be the greatest motivators and also the greatest disasters to one's psyche. With the right ideal, a person can become pretty much immortal, supported by their own faith. Others will fall into bad habits because of those ideals. Some can believe that they are greater than they are, which pushes them into doing things that they normally wouldn't be capable of. Others will believe that their failures are the result of the world around them, whether that's true or not, their misfortunes shaping their beliefs, which holds them back from doing things that normally would be easily achievable, truly flexible. This is all for one person. Now extend that to a few. Now do that to a dozen. Now 100. And then 1,000. Keep going until you reach a nation. Those ideals are just as, if not more, flexible now. Spreading the right belief among a bunch of people is much easier than doing so with just one person. People are easily influenced, a person is not. Which is why it's so much easier to spread your ideals to people as long as you have the charisma. People will believe in anything, from peace to brutality. People want to believe in things greater than them for large portions of their lives. Now we know just how easily people are controlled. What can be done with that control? You can trap them in reality, making them aware of just how pointless things are. You can also empower them with fiction, giving them strength in the unbelievable. You can also do the same in the opposite direction. Weaken people with fantasies, making them tamer and more docile. Or you can give people righteous hope in reality, making them aware of what they're truly capable of. It's all a matter of what you want. You can mix all those things too. You can be a dreamer and a realist at the same time, depending on the matter. Paradoxical, just as many other things in the world. Let's make one thing clear, there is no ultimate ideal. Which is funny because even that is an ideal. There is no answer that will satisfy everyone. Even if it does, eventually it won't. Because everyone is different and, more importantly, people will always desire change. Yes, people love the known and sometimes glorify it. But because of how we as humans have lived and evolved, we need constant change, constant growth. The desire to change leads us to mysteries, and those mysteries eventually lead to answers, and those answers can change the world. Not the world as in Earth, but the world as in what someone perceives. We all live in our own worlds with things that matter to us, with our own visions of what the worlds of others should be. A human heart demands to be admired, just as it demands to be understood. And with the help of a gathering, of a nation, that heart, that ideal, can be admired and understood to the highest level. Whatever motivations you have to be a leader doesn't matter in this context. What matters is the depths of your motivation, of your charisma, and of your belief in your own ideals. If you are determined enough, smart enough, and lucky enough, You can etch your own ideals into the hearts of others. Whatever that entails is up to your ideals. It can be something simple like your opinion on a niche topic. But in extreme circumstances, the ideals of someone can shred through the beliefs of others, changing their perspectives on their world. That is how you become a great leader. That is how you kill a god. That is how you surpass a god. Or you can just ignore all that if you don't agree with me. Enciodes' first operator record isn't anything special, mostly just a meeting between him and the doctor. I skimmed through his second one, but I don't think that's worth covering either. Honestly, I didn't remember Break the Ice being so dense. It's long and it feels like every line matters, which I guess is why it's one of my favorite events. It feels small yet important. A problem that many Arknights events have is that a lot of them are just setups for future events. This was also an event like that, almost felt like a prequel to something. But unlike most other events, this one felt like it had something interesting to say. This didn't feel like a throwaway setup event, but an actual story. Like, we are witnessing history. It's a very, very well thought out story, and I appreciate it. Unlike Stultifera Navis, there aren't any long stretches of by God, nothing is happening. So that's cool too. Like, subscribe, dislike, comment, give me whatever engagement you can. I'm tired, really relating to Ratatos right now, just want to lie in bed, but just lighter and lighter, I guess. I could say some outlandish thing about Valays to end the video, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not so immature. I'm a good boy. I would never think about sucking on her